everyone.
time.
As always, we're probably one of the most timely shows. It's kind of like on the ESPN app when you look up kickoff, then you tune in right on time. It's actually like 4 or 5 minutes later.
Exactly. We have all of our advertisements and everything that we have to run. It makes a lot of sense, right?
Dude, right on the nail. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, doing pretty well. Just, another day living the dream. Thanksgiving literally is on Thursday, which is hard to believe. This year's flown by. We literally have one regular season OU game left.
Last Big 12 regular season game
Ever.
ever.
And it's hard to think about it, but we count down for months and weeks and weeks and months for the football season, and now it's over, pretty much.
It always
Yeah, it goes
goes
by
by
real
way
fast.
too quick.
But I just wish it was the 12-team playoff format this year. Could you imagine going in this game and we're sitting at number 13 right now, and we're hoping to sneak in? I mean, I think we would,
I think
but
that's the perfect first topic. I think for the most part the rankings have been pretty good, but Penn State being above us is crazy to me because they haven't beat anyone remotely decent, and the only two good teams they get killed every year.
it's the James Franklin special. Brandon, do you have some thoughts on that? That's your favorite school.
No, it's not my favorite school. I agree with Jose that I think it's ridiculous, but I don't care enough to care, especially this season where it doesn't matter. If it was next season, I would be saying the same thing. I'd be saying it's ridiculous that they're ranked ahead of us because it's a 12-team format. We should definitely be ahead of them, but we're not playing for a college football playoff. Neither are they. I don't really think it matters right now unless you're in the top four. So and we're not going to get there.
I mean, what do you think of? I mean, if we're just going to be talking top four and stuff, what do you think is going to happen this weekend? You got Ohio State and Michigan. It's in Ann Arbor.
I think
I'm just
Michigan's going
curious.
to beat the brakes off of them, and I don't want that to be the case, but I think Michigan's going to. Those assholes are going to win the whole thing, and I hate it because I think they're cheating. I think they're cheating for sure, but yeah, I think they're going to win the whole thing pretty easy.
Really?
I think they're tough.
No, and they are tough. And
Although
they might. What?
Maryland had them on the ropes a little bit this weekend.
Yeah, they didn't. They didn't look that great. I mean, granted, they might beat Ohio State this weekend. I don't. I think Ohio State will win.
Of course you do.
Michigan, JJ McCarthy just isn't. I mean, who has Michigan played this year? I mean,
What
what
Ohio
they
State played this year? They both played Penn State. They both beat them.
It just
Unless they
Michigan.
played Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Notre Dame stinks.
It's better than what Michigan's played, though.
I was gonna say, have you looked at that schedule for Michigan?
Ohio State thought about losing to Rutgers.
But they didn't.
That's true, but they stink.
Just like Oklahoma thought about losing to BYU, but they didn't.
They didn't. I don't know. I don't think Ohio State beats Michigan. Especially, they're not going to go into the big house and beat those cheaters. I hope they do. I really hope they do, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it going that way too. I mean, they're all free Harbaugh, all this other stuff, and I mean, it's pretty obvious that I think they got caught. The fact that what is that linebackers coach got fired because he was trying to get rid of the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I actually like Ohio State this weekend.
I
Their
do too.
defense is better than it has been the last 2 years. Like you mentioned, JJ McCarthy is going to make mistakes. And it's basically going to be if Ohio State's defensive line can hold up. They should. They're better than they have been.
Yeah, and I can't wait to watch, potentially the future New England Patriot Marvin Harrison Jr. play. That'll be really fun to watch.
Seems unlikely because you guys need basically everything else too.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing is, we need to start over. It's either Caleb Williams or Marvin Harrison Jr. That's one of the two. That's what we're going to be getting. So we're going. We only have a few more games to complete the ultimate goal. 7 more losses, and we will be sitting pretty.
Are you ready for
Brandon?
Lincoln Riley to be your head coach?
No.
Bill's getting ran out of town. That's your guy.
He's not getting ran out of town. I mean, when you've got McCorkle Jones throwing ducks that literally guys are open and it's just bad. He's just got a case of the yips. He's done.
We always wondered with New England if it was Bill Belichick being a great head coach or Tom Brady being a great quarterback. Our answer is so evident that Tom Brady carried that guy for 17 years because the Patriots absolutely stink. They're so bad.
Close to true.
They're horrible. As soon as that guy left, they suck.
Yeah, but Tom Brady would not have been Tom Brady without Bill Belichick.
He sucks. They suck. He lost Tom Brady. They suck.
That usually happens when you
happening.
When you lose an all-time great quarterback, you usually end up not being as good with a not all-time great quarterback. Look at the Packers. They got rid of Rodgers. They suck.
Years.
Red line, I agree. Craig Stoops will be a New England Patriot. That is a prototypical.
Tom Brady won one in like 2 years removed from being out of there. So Tom Brady's great no matter where he goes.
He is the GOAT.
He carried Bill Belichick.
They're both the GOAT.
They're the greatest at what they did.
Tom, really, really good. Greatest ever. Bill, we could have done it. It shows.
Oh my God. We could have done it?
That's just crazy.
Look how bad they are.
Their defense is still really good.
No, it's not really good.
On.
Anyway.
We don't have to focus on the statistics, but you thinking that it's Tom Brady and Bill Belichick not being a factor at all is just asinine.
He carried him.
That's just silly. But let's talk about the football game that Oklahoma played on Saturday a little bit, because we haven't touched on that at all. I don't think the three of us have talked at it all, even through text messages. So you want to start, Brum? What did you think about the football game?
Well, there's a lot of things. Oklahoma won. Ultimately, that's the most important thing, right? I'm not shocked. I mean, that was a game that I remember circling, and I think you guys agreed with me that it felt like that's a game that Oklahoma could lose. And now I did think it would be at night. I didn't think it'd be at, 10 Mountain Time in the morning, like one of the last goodbyes from the Big 12, like gifts from them to say, hey, go ahead and go out and play in the mountains of Utah at 10 o'clock central, local time. So I wasn't overly shocked that it was a close game. I guess I was more shocked at how Oklahoma really struggled against the run. I mean, coming into this matchup, BYU was the worst rushing team in the Big 12. And Oklahoma made them look like the number one rushing team in the Big 12. And it was just, they were sluggish. I don't know what the problem was. I don't know if the altitude was getting to them, how early. I mean, the time shouldn't bother them. I mean, we play at 11 a.m. games pretty much every week, and their body clock is still, 11 Central. It's not, you just flew out there for a few days and that's it. I mean, Gabriel played well until he got hurt. Jaden Gibson played well. I don't know what to really make of the rushing defense. But the thing was, when they had to have it, they had it. And I guess at the end of the day, that's the most important. I mean, if you're going to bend and then really be able to bow up and make the plays when you had to, that's ultimately what's most important. When Gabriel went out and Jackson Arnold came in, it was unfortunate because I was like, man, well, there goes his red shirt. We're literally 2 regular season games away from getting through this, or a game and a half. And so that got burnt, which is not the end of the world. But I'm glad that they didn't hold him out just to
Yes.
maintain it. I mean, could you imagine we put Davis Bevel out there just to maintain it?
It's a different outcome if that's the case.
Yeah. And so, but I felt like if Billy Bowman didn't have a pick six, Oklahoma probably would have lost. But Jackson Arnold made the throw when he had to make the throw, made the audible, and hit Jalil Farouk and ended the game. So, I don't know. I think it's also tough for Oklahoma to be out of the college football playoffs, not controlling your own destiny to the Big 12 championship game. I think they were dealing with some motivational issues too. And Stutzman wasn't healthy. I mean, he was dealing with the flu, or he wasn't, he was sick. Gavin Sawchuk looked good. But for some reason, it felt like Gavin Sawchuk, I can't remember when it was, but it felt like Gavin Sawchuk was rolling, and then all of a sudden they'd bring Tolly Walker in, and then Gavin would be put on the shelf when they had to have it. I don't know. It was just sometimes with that, I felt like you just keep feeding the hot hand with Gavin Sawchuk. But overall, a win's a win. It's better than losing, right?
Yes. You mentioned that you weren't shocked with the outcome. You expected to be close, whatever. I 100% didn't. And BYU, just looking at their previous 3 weeks before this game, lost like almost every game by 30. I think Texas beat them by 29. Iowa State beat them by 30. West Virginia beat them by 30. I was expecting Oklahoma to kind of keep that going for them, roll in there and get it done. Unfortunately, that obviously wasn't the case. Yeah, the run defense I think was definitely the most frustrating part, because it felt like almost for a whole half quarter, even close to a quarter in the second half, like the third quarter, they would just hand the ball off right at the middle and get 7-8 yards a chunk before they even got touched. And, they did that all the way down to the 5-yard line. Billy makes the play of the game. And there's no doubt that Billy Bowman, I agree, he won the game. And him making that play saved Oklahoma. But, I mean, even beyond that, you got Danny Stutzman coming up with the strip sack midway through the fourth that sets up the eventual game-winning touchdown. So, like you said, like anytime the defense absolutely had to have it, they had it. At the end of the day, Oklahoma did not trail in this game. It was tied at worst for us. I thought the offense with Gabriel looked really solid. I think, it's a little shaky with Jackson in the second half, but that's, I think, to be expected, just being thrown in there. I really, really, really appreciate Jeff Levy with the game on the line, not calling the game to not lose. I think that we had a game plan to go out there and win. The play call that was dialed up for Nick Anderson I think it was the first play of the drive. I know you got the ball back. First down, they called a deep ball. Nick Anderson's wide open. That's a ball Jackson that Arnold should hit. And, unfortunately he sailed it. But at the end of the day, like you said, he called the audible to Jalil Farouk, game over. But thought it was cool to see Jeff Levy not go ultra conservative in that situation when BYU could have got the ball back.
Yeah, I agree. I think the issues Oklahoma had were definitely more execution issues and not play calling issues or issues that the coach could have resolved by changing something. The only time I had any sort of like gripe against Levy for this game was on Jackson's first drive. Seemed like when they were backed up on to their own end zone, and he didn't want to create any space. It seemed like he just wanted to dink and dunk and get Jackson in a rhythm, which I understand. It just seemed like in that situation, you kind of got to hope that he can rise to the situation. That's really the only time. Like after that, probably ran a little bit more than would have been ideal, because if Jackson got hurt, then you do have to rely on the X factor of Davis Bevel. But they got it done. The defense, they basically looked exactly like they did against Kansas. Almost pretty similar. This time it wasn't so much mistackled. It was for those that watch the game a little bit more and understand how it worked, and according to Venables, just linebackers weren't lined up properly when the ball got snapped, so they were getting got. But they came up with turnovers when they needed to. Billy with the pick six, Danny with the strip sack. And then there was the gimme fumble recovery that occurred whenever they just mishandled a handoff.
Looked like a ball don't lie situation there.
I don't remember what happened before that, but it worked out for Oklahoma. There was definitely times where OU could have just lost the game. It could have been like last year where they didn't execute and finish the game off to win. I think regardless of how it went, it shows that the team can at least fight through that adversity, and they're learning how to get through it, because that's one of the big things that was missing last year. They couldn't, once that hole was dug, they couldn't get themselves out of it. And it hasn't been great this year, but they've definitely been in situations, and I think this one's the best example this season, where they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot. They're going to give themselves as many opportunities as they can, and this time they were able to execute, which is the biggest difference between this game and the Kansas and Oklahoma State game.
Brum, I have a question for you, since you were the only one that got to watch the game on TV and hear the call and stuff. Hose, the play that preceded that fumble for BYU, where they just kind of gave it to us, was the fake punt that they took off the board for Oklahoma, obviously, which I thought was awesome. But I was on an airplane watching the game on an iPad, and I forgot my headphones, so I wasn't going to be that asshole who played, I had the volume all the way down. Hose was at the game. He was in Provo, so he couldn't hear anything. What was the explanation on why they took that away from Oklahoma? I saw, the replay or whatever, and they're showing Nick Anderson, I think it was, blocking downfield.
It was because Nick Anderson wasn't trying to run a route. He was just blocking him at the end of the day, the entire way. If he would have let him go, I think it would have been fine. But that's really what it was. He was not really running a route. It kind of was obvious when you looked at it, but I would have never called it, of course, unless it was BYU doing it to Oklahoma.
I thought it was super ballsy to call it. I thought it was awesome. Really cool to see Ethan Downs come down with a catch like that. Punter put a nice touch pass out there. It was a really, really cool play. I was very sad when the flag came out. But so I tweeted "Ball don't lie." Apparently, maybe we just kind of got bailed. But either way, ball don't lie.
Yeah, that's all good. How was Provo, Toes?
It was cool. Probably I thought going there, I just expected Provo to kind of be a shitty town that happened to have a nice college in it. It's more like a small city, I would say, and then there's a university. It's as if like Oklahoma City and Norman were right next door, rather than Norman being 40 minutes from OKC. Is the best way I could put it, so that we could kind of picture it. I loved it. It was really cool. The fans were so nice. Like there was, I don't know if they were college kids or just guys that like were BYU fans, but they were in front of us sitting, and they were, obviously they're cheering for BYU, but they were kind of in amazement of how many Oklahoma fans they were. It was as if they like appreciated it. No one really hated on Oklahoma. There was like a few guys that were really frustrated because they didn't like how OU was substituting the defensive lineman every single play. They just kept yelling about how the fat guys, they kept saying "move faster, chubby," which I think is probably the nicest thing you could say in that situation. Obviously, it probably is frustrating as a BYU fan, but you could go to any other stadium, they'd probably be coming with very creative ways to talk about how frustrated they are about that substitution method.
Nice. Yeah. I was reading, did they give you some ice cream? Was it free ice cream or something?
There wasn't any, at least that I saw, there wasn't any free ice cream, but they have this thing called a cougar tail. I didn't know it existed until I got there.
I saw those everywhere.
The size of my arm, like from fingertip to elbow. Giant donut. It's so good. I think if you ever go to BYU just to like for a game, or I'm sure they sell them like around campus. It's a must-have at least one time. Apparently, it's got like 4,000 calories, so don't do it often. But it's good.
Did you eat the entire thing?
I ate half of it. I shared it with my dad, but it was tasty. The one thing that I did forget is, a Mormon institution. I forgot they can't drink caffeine. And I was like, oh, I don't need coffee here at my hotel. Like, we can leave late. We were only a mile away. I'll get coffee at the stadium. They have to sell warm drinks. There's hot chocolate everywhere. Slightly disappointed because I couldn't justify having a hot chocolate and a 4,000 calorie donut, but it was awesome there.
You should have done it.
That's funny. And I also saw someone tweet out like the only bar in Provo is like this little hole in the wall. Did you stop by that at all?
So we didn't go to that bar because we didn't want to stick around there after the game for too long. But we ended up going to a bar like 15 minutes away from campus. And you can tell like they're not used to having very many people. Because we went right after the game. So it was maybe we got there around 2 o'clock. And there was only 2 employees. When we got there, there was 3 tables set. And everyone was an OU fan at that point at the bar. Within 30 minutes, the entire place was packed. And these 2 poor people were having, and like, they have to ID you as you walk in. Like, you can't sit down until you get your ID checked, regardless of how old you looked. So, like, you could be 105 years old and look like it. They have to check your ID and scan it. But so these guys were like back and forth checking IDs, letting people. They were just telling people, sit wherever you want. Like, they'll figure it out. They had to call backup. Like, it was. I felt bad for them. I mean, I think they did way better tip wise than they probably expected, but it was really cool.
Nice.
Oh,
nice.
The entire bar was OU fans. There wasn't. So the USC game and the OSU game were on when we first got there, and everyone was cheering for the Cougars. And every time USC made a mistake or UCLA made a play, it got even louder.
Sounds like a pretty good time.
It's a good time. Big Utah fan now. It's kind of like
Utah.
Phoenix, but it's got weather.
Utah's really a really cool place. But yeah, all right. Well, sounds like you had a lot of fun. Made the one and only conference game road trip out there. You never know. Maybe we play an out of conference with them in 10 years or something like that.
We'll see. What do you guys think about Jackson Arnold? I know we kind of like each touched on it, but and like do you think he'll actually change the offense? Because I mean, situationally, I think Lebby's still going to mess up occasionally. That just seems to be what he does. But the one play you mentioned, the 3rd and 13 that he converted to Jalil Farouk, I think that play is the difference between him and Dylan Gabriel. Because he threw it to Jalil and there was 3 guys around him. Probably not the best decision, but in that situation, it's a ball that you got to put there in the right spot because you got to convert, or this game could go bad quickly. And I think Dylan Gabriel would have hit the safer target, and Drake Stoops, who was like 5 yards away from the first down, so kind of hope Drake Stoops makes a play there. I think that's the biggest difference. Dylan will try to take the safe play and hope his guys make the play, rather than Jackson will make the play himself and hope that the guy comes down with the ball.
It was a little shorter than 3rd and 13. I want to say
3rd and 13.
I thought it was more 3rd and manageable. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It was cool to see him audible to that and then lock it on Jalil Farouk the entire way. He kind of didn't look any other direction. He kind of knew he was going to go there, hit Jalil Farouk, money, game over. That was awesome. Great play. I think overall it's too hard to judge on if he's going to change the offense or if this and that, just because it's the first half he's got to start all the way through in a competitive game. I think if he hits that ball to Nick Anderson and puts the game on ice, I might be talking a little bit different about him, but I'm not going to judge him yet for missing that. It's just too early to tell.
I would agree. I don't put it.
3rd and 8.
Yeah, I don't put it. Yeah, I don't put a ton of stock into it. Um, it's on the road. It's like Brandon said, it's his first competitive half of football he's played in a collegiate level. My question is, I'm starting to get the feeling that I think Dylan Gabriel is going to come back next year.
I don't think that would
Because
benefit him.
when you think about it objectively, why would Dylan Gabriel bypass his last year of eligibility? He's not projected to be a first round quarterback. Why would he do that? It makes no sense. I mean, he's got to be thinking that to himself and his parents and his agent or whoever's representing him. He's got to think about it objectively. I mean, his first year at OU was not good. The whole team was not that great. It wasn't him, solely on him. This year, Oklahoma's made a lot of strides. They're not quite there yet. And when you think about it, it would actually make a lot of sense for OU's first year in the SEC to have a quarterback that's been in college football forever and he knows what he's doing to bridge that gap. And maybe you actually get Jackson Arnold to be able to redshirt next year. I actually think he's coming back.
I think
it makes way too much sense.
It makes a ton of sense for Dylan Gabriel. I would panic if he did. And it sounds like a slight to Dylan, but I don't want it to. I mean, I like Dylan. I think he's good. I think he's a quality NCAA starter, but I feel like we've seen his ceiling at Oklahoma, what he can do with the team, what he can do with the offense. I feel like there's not a whole lot of growth if he comes back another season. I'm curious to see Jackson Arnold. I hope it is Jackson Arnold. And plus, I mean, like everybody, like I'm sure if Dylan does make that decision like Quinn is doing in Austin, then we immediately start to think about the future of Jackson Arnold. I know for a fact I'll be thinking, do you think Jackson will sit a whole nother year? Or will it be a more legitimate quarterback competition? And then what if Jackson Arnold beats out Dylan? And then he just...
I mean, at the end of the day, if he beats him out, then he beats him out. And also, there's nothing to say that if he gets beat out, I mean, Gabriel could hit the portal. I mean, he could just say, all right, I'm out and not burn his year of eligibility and go somewhere else. I mean, he wouldn't be able to play fall of 24. He'd have to, be looking fall of 25. But I don't think that Jackson Arnold would be looking to bolt if Dylan Gabriel came back. I don't think he really would legitimately be like, well, if he's coming back, I'm out. I'm going somewhere else where I can compete. Well, they're going to give him an opportunity to compete. I think Oklahoma would be foolish to not allow Dylan Gabriel back if Dylan wanted to come back. I think that Dylan Gabriel has been a little bit hampered by Jeff Levy trying to figure out his issues and trying to learn on the job. I think Dylan Gabriel's been a little bit of I think he's paid for it a little bit, and he's had a really good year. I mean, Oklahoma, aren't they like the number 4 scoring offense or something crazy nationally, and they're one of the Big 12? I mean, Oklahoma scores a lot of points. They do. They play really well, despite them not executing in some critical situations. I don't know. I think it would be foolish for Oklahoma not to allow him back if he wanted to come back. If he wants out, then he wants out. But I don't know.
I think that it wouldn't work in Oklahoma's favor for Dylan to come back because similar to Brandon, you know what Dylan can do for you, and Dylan knows what he can do. I think this was his year where if he was going to make a big jump from being an undrafted guy or a late round guy to a top 3 round guy, this was the year it was going to happen. Next year won't change much for him. I think the only reason it benefits like the Quinn Ewers situation is because Quinn is probably like an early second late first type guy, depending on the team and what their quarterback situation is. Dylan's a game manager. You don't really you don't see him making the big play when with his arm, not like the biggest arm either. He's accurate for sure, but you know what it is? Jackson Arnold, I don't think he bolts either. I think you're right there. If Dylan were to come back, I don't think Jackson leaves. For the most part, I don't think anyone that this staff recruiting that has recruited will just take to the portal because they're not getting playing time as early as they'd like. Because for the most part, it seems like the message is pretty clear. Like, you'll get to compete, and if you win, you win. And if you don't, like, you'll get opportunities to try to get on the field as much as we can put you out there. But we're putting the best people on the field. So if Dylan does come back and Jackson beats him out in quarterback competition, that's again where Dylan kind of puts himself in a situation like, okay, then I might have to hit the portal. But if I do, then I'm putting myself in danger to not get drafted the year after. And then I'm going to be like 30 by the time I get to finally declare for the NFL draft. And that becomes an issue because what the hell can he do in the NFL at that point? What can he learn? What is he able to do? Like, how can you teach him anything? It's probably, look at Brandon Whedon. He didn't really change his game much going from college to the NFL, and it didn't work out for him. And obviously, that's one example, but there's not a real big benefit for Dylan to come back other than he'll probably make way more money staying in college and getting paid NIL money than being a 5th round quarterback to the NFL. I think you got to take your chance that right now if you're Dylan and just see what happens. And
he's only 22 right now.
Dylan is? So he'd be, okay, so let's just say, for example, Jackson does beat him out. He comes back, Jackson beats him out, and he decides to go to the portal. If the NCAA gives him that opportunity, he'll be 24, almost 24 by the time he gets to the draft. If he has to sit out a year, he'll be 25. Or almost 25 when he does go to the draft. Stetson, I think, was 25 last year, so it's been done. But Stetson also won back-to-back national championships, so him going back for his last year made sense because they were on pace to be that good again. Yeah. I don't think Oklahoma with Dylan Gabriel is going to be changing, being world beaters. The defense would have to be significantly better, and Jeff Lebby would have to be significantly better for that to make sense.
When I just look at it, Oklahoma right now has the number 7 rated offense for most yards per game, or most yards. They're number 7 in the country. Dylan Gabriel has 38 total touchdowns and 5 picks. He moves the ball. For the most part, he protects the ball really well too. Is he the best? Is he a Caleb Williams? No. But I tell you what, if you want to win now, Jackson Arnold might long-term, he probably has he definitely has a higher ceiling than him. But if you want to win in your first year in the SEC, Dylan Gabriel's your guy. Because I'm going to tell you.
You're saying Jackson can't win year 1 in the SEC.
He'll win you games. He won't win the SEC. Oklahoma will not win the SEC championship next year if Jackson Arnold starts.
Do they win if Dylan Gabriel starts?
Potentially. Because Dylan Gabriel has been in college football for a very long time. Gabriel will be able to score the ball. He's been there. He's done that. Jackson Arnold, thinking about it, his first road game, I guess BYU was his first road game, but starting his first Tulsa, yeah, that's a hostile environment, being in Oklahoma. But think about this. How would you feel on an maybe early October, late Saturday night, going on the road into Baton Rouge with basically a true freshman quarterback? There aren't Caleb Williams on every corner. And even with Caleb Williams, you still don't feel that great with a true freshman, basically, at that point. You feel a little bit better with Dylan Gabriel. And you feel like, okay, he can go play in this environment. I also think he's being hampered by this offensive line and the lack of the running backs really being able to emerge until recently with Gavin Sawchuk.
Yeah.
So if he had a legitimate offensive line, who it seems like they found Caden Green, he's been rock solid, but they're going to have some struggles next year. I mean, Guyton could go; he could be a top, a day one or an early day two kind of guy. I mean, Rain, he's got one more year, right? I think one more year of eligibility, if I remember correctly.
Think so.
Rain.
Yeah.
So Rain could be back. Rouse is going to be gone. Met Twire, whatever his name is, however you say it, he's going to be gone. He's been up and down anyway, but they're going to have 2 or 3 new offensive linemen next year. The running back situation will be better. I understand the ceiling might be higher, but if you add a couple more transfers in the offensive line, they bring in some talented, freshman offensive line. They get Andrew Anthony back. Jalil Farouk, I think, will come back. And unfortunately, you do lose Drake Stoops. That one does hurt. I'm not going to lie. But you've got Gavin Freeman, who seems to be maybe some sort of a protege.
Quez next year.
Yeah, Jaquez. I mean, there's a rumor flying around that Evan Stewart is interested in Oklahoma. The Texas A&M wide receiver. I mean, Oklahoma is going to – and they're bringing in how many running or wide receivers in this true freshman class or, the 24 class? I think this offense it's made its stride from last year to this year, and I think it could be better next year. And it's number 7 in yards per game right now. I just think that Oklahoma could truly compete, and then the defense will be better next year. It's already better than it was last year. They will be better. Stutzman will be back. I think.
I hope so.
I think what scares me more about Dylan or Jackson or whoever outside of Davis Bevel, you got to have a quarterback who can play. And I think Dylan can play. I think Jackson can play. What scares me more about that at LSU game scenario you're talking about or at whoever in the SEC is not even the quarterback on the field, not the running back. It's Jeff Lebby. And I think Jeff Lebby at home, it doesn't make any sense to me. At home, I think he's masterful. Even the OU Texas game in Dallas, which is kind of a home game, it's 50-50. Thought he called a gem. But even Brigham Young is not a very good football team. Kansas is not a very good football team. Oklahoma State's not a very good football team. Central Florida is a good
football team.
Kansas is not very good.
This year they are.
No, they're not. Cincinnati's not very good. Outside of Tulsa, we have not. There's a night and day difference of this offense at home versus this offense on the road. And it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. If that guy can't figure out for whatever, if he can't figure out how to call a game on the road, it really doesn't matter who's going to be at the helm.
Yeah, I agree. Lebby is the one that can't travel. His situational awareness dips. If at home it's a 99 rated on Madden, it's like a 50 when he's on a true road game for whatever reason.
It makes
maybe
no
he'll
sense.
fix it next year, but going into in a much bigger and tougher road environment, and I get it, he did it at Ole Miss, but Brum, you bring it up, and I think that's a point that a lot of people forget in the mistakes he makes now. At Ole Miss, he had Lane Kiffin saying, kind of approving or vetoing any decisions he may have made, because he was a play caller at Ole Miss, but he had Lane Kiffin, kind of checking things off to make sure that the offensive game plan was running smoothly. Because you look at the Ole Miss offense, that hasn't missed a step. If anything, it's gotten better, and they run the ball with whatever running back they have. So it was Lane Kiffin's offense that Lebby got to learn from. Now that he's the sole play caller and the guy that takes charge of the offense, he's making those mistakes because he's learning. That's fine, and I think it's a really good point that a lot of people have forgotten and you brought up. But on the road, being that lone play caller, how are you going to respond in a significantly tougher road environment than Kansas? I think the biggest one is probably Oklahoma State. I think, regardless of what we think of them, it is a tough road game, big rivalry, especially for them. but you still made a mistake. You still make some situational mistakes in other road environments that aren't as tough, anywhere near as tough as Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State doesn't compare to an LSU, just for an example. So how is he going to respond in those? I think that's the biggest thing, regardless of the players, because the players show up for the most part, but you gotta
He
be
was
the
way
guy that can
worse
also put it.
at Kansas. The Kansas game, I think, is one of the worst offensive called game I've ever seen in my life. And unfortunately, Levy dialed it up for us.
I mean, I get it. There's also another argument that, talking about the BYU game, that Jackson Arnold would have executed that throw, and they can't. Like, there's been plenty of times where
I agree.
Jeff Levy gets a lot of the flack, but there's a lot of times that there were plays called and people are open, or people and the ball's not thrown in the right spot, or they just don't see him. And I'm not going to say that Jeff Levy's perfect. He's young.
I'm usually the first person to come defend Jeff Levy, and that's not always popular. Because in some group chats that I'm in with the guy in the show, that he's not really big on Jeff Levy and will come attack him. And I think the only game this season that he has called that is inexcusable was that Kansas game where we attempted like 7 passes until we absolutely had to pass. It was do or die time because it was rainy and stuff. But Kansas was passing all day long when they had the same weather conditions. I thought the Kansas game was inexcusable. Everything else, there are things like that. Yeah, because if Jackson Arnold hits the deep ball, against BYU, there's a bunch of different things. But the Kansas game was just
and the same could be said against Oklahoma State too, because I remember when Dylan Gabriel dropped a ball right into Nick Anderson's hands, like 50 yards away. I mean, that changes the whole perspective. So there's just so many what ifs. I mean, like last night where Patrick Mahomes dropped a perfect ball on Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That's the difference of winning and losing.
Dude, those Chiefs receivers, they might as well sign 2 Point Sports. Give us a shot.
I think you can tell the difference between when it's the players not executing and when there's poor decision making and situational moments. So especially the jet sweeps, since the fans have just basically put him on the hot seat, not as many. Definitely still there because he loves them, but they're not there like every 3 plays like they seemed to be during the Kansas game and when it got really bad. And fans were starting to really get frustrated with how Levy was calling the game. I think that pass that Jackson overthrew is, definitely like an execution thing.
Yeah.
The Nick Anderson drop, an execution thing. It just, there's also situational stuff that Levy needs to fix, and I think he's going to fix them. Assuming he's still the offensive coordinator for Oklahoma next year, I think he will be better. But because he has improved this year, I think I'm the one that definitely shits on Levy the most in those group chats. He's improved. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say he hasn't. But there's those moments where you can tell he wants to fall back into those bad habits. I think the players, that you can see it in the players too, like Dylan Gabriel. There were times where we were the ones that watched most of last season. Now Brandon was unavailable. But you could see sometimes where Dylan kind of gets a little jumpy, and the big thing that was pointed out in Dylan's first season at Oklahoma is how he was too low and his stance would get too wide, so he would air the ball over, and he became an inaccurate quarterback. There were times where he was slipping into those bad habits too, but you would have fixed them. So like there's times where you see those bad habits coming out again, but they find a way to adjust. That's the biggest difference between last year and this year, is finding a way to overcome and adjust. And I think Levy can do it next year. But those road environments are much tougher. And me and Brandon were talking about this. The games that OU lost, you turned the ball over 3 times. That's tough to overcome, regardless of your defense making some plays or playing a good game. As an offense, it's tough to overcome 3 turnovers that you basically gave away. Because outside of maybe the Oklahoma State pick that they got in that game, the other 5 that I can think of were all Oklahoma unforced errors. Like, you just made them, and it gave the ball back to the other team.
No, and I will also argue that I think the whole coaching staff's gotten better. I mean, Brent Venables is a better head coach than he was last year. I mean, it's just a really young, really young staff, and I think they're all learning on the job. And it's just the reality of the situation. And in year two, I mean, we talked about predictions before the season started, and we talked base, bottom is 9-3, best obviously is 12-0, or realistic would be 11-1. Oklahoma's sitting here with an opportunity to go 10-2. Things go the right way to go play in the Big 12 championship game in year two. That's pretty good, and I just I'm hopeful that Gabriel comes back, and I think most of this team will come back next year because I mean, outside of maybe like Woody Washington and Drake Stoops, guys that have to go. I think Stutzman comes back, and I mean DeJoun Terry will have to go too. But I mean, they're going to lose a handful
Does he
of
have to
guys.
go?
He might not.
I could be wrong. I thought DeJoun could come back next year.
He might not. For some reason I thought he might have came in with 1 year of eligibility, but he might not have to. I hope he doesn't because he would be great to take in the SEC with us. But I guess we've been talking for a while and hadn't mentioned things. Be sure to like and subscribe. We're what are we, 86 subscribers away from 6,100? So be one of those 86. Help us out. It's free, easy. Yeah, buy a shirt. Link in the description below. We're giving away, or not we, but the guy that's making our T-shirts, as Brandon likes to say, Sammy T-shirts, is going to give away a signed Brent Venables football once we sell 100 T-shirts. So if you buy a T-shirt, you're entered in to win. And then follow us on all our socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. So be one of those 86. Hit the subscribe button now and turn the notification bell on so you know when we go live. Anyway, that was nothing that I was really planning to talk about, but I did think about before we got on. I was like, I wonder what they think about Dylan Gabriel coming back. I'd be happy with him coming back. But that's just me. Should we talk a little recruiting? I'm sure some people would like to talk a little recruiting.
Let's do it. I know the big one is Bree or Bricks.
Yeah, Grant Bree.
Stinks.
I hate to say I told us so, but I told us so.
You kind of did tell us so, but you kind of
you're backing off.
You're back on the good guy side at the end there, and think maybe.
Yeah, but I think now I act like we've been doing this for such a long time, but we've been doing it for a couple of years now. And if there's one thing I have learned through this, really following it closely, if you sense some sort of hesitation where mom or dad, mainly mom, is kind of saying, I don't know about them. There's some hesitation, wanting to be closer to home. There's family circumstances that makes them want to be closer to home. And
unless
he just won't commit.
That.
Yeah, I mean, you do have a Peyton Bowen one, but that's only happened one time. It seems like more times than not where you get this whole family feeling with, I mean, you got David Stone, who he kind of overcame a little bit, but he had the support kind of go wherever. But when you look at like David Hicks, it kind of had some family feel there. And now you've got Grant Bricks that, want to be too far. I mean, a small town boy who wants to be close to home. It's just when you get these weird feelings where like, why, like everything's a green light except something's holding them up. It just seems like those typically don't go Oklahoma's way. And it probably goes the same way with other teams if you follow them really closely. I mean, I'm sure it's the same thing, but when you just start asking yourself, why isn't it? I mean, something just feels off. There's a little smoke, there's fire there, and I'm not shocked. I mean, I obviously was hoping he'd beat it sooner, but I'm not shocked.
The two big factors, and like you said, we haven't done this for too long, but I think this is our third recruiting cycle we've covered as a whole. There's only two things that sway a player one way or another: the girlfriend or the mom. Which woman are they going to listen to in their lives? I think mom, for the most part, wins out on that one. Sometimes the girlfriend wins. I mean, we benefited from that now with two very good safeties and Billy Bowman and Peyton Bowen. But then, it is tough for these guys to just go against mom's wish. Peyton Bowen, yeah, that's one you brought him up. David Stone a little bit. That's worked in our favor too. Daniel Akinkunmi, I think his mom loved Oklahoma. Another guy that maybe OU didn't impress mom as much as they could have was Williams-Nwaneri. But one that they did impress mom towards the end was Devon Mitchell. If you remember, like towards the end of his, right before his announcement, there was a little bit of smoke that Miami and Alabama were making bigger impressions because mom was more familiar with what they were gonna do and provide for her son. Then she visited Oklahoma and she was sold, just like Dad and he were. So you gotta. It's a battle that every staff has to face. But with Bricks specifically, I think, and you say it a lot, Brum, like there's times where it just feels like they're looking for a reason to not go to Oklahoma. And every box was checked for offensive linemen. And people may say Coach B is just missing out on these top offensive linemen. I still believe that the O-line position is one that is poorly rated on every single recruiting platform. They just look at how big they are. And sometimes it is. I mean, that obviously is very important. But you also got to look at the guy that they're going to go play for. And Coach B is one of the best in the country. In some ways, say the best. But he's at least in a top 10 situation where you look at offensive line coaches and where he gets his players at the end of the day. Everything is checked off for offensive linemen. He just needs to apparently be a little closer to home. And at the end of the day, Matt Rule is kind of selling what Oklahoma was selling for the last couple of cycles. You've got an opportunity to play early. You're bringing back Oklahoma. Or, for Matt Rule, you're bringing back Nebraska to what they were in the early 2000s and the 90s and all that stuff. But now he's got to just go do what he wants to do and do what his family thinks is best. And it seems like Nebraska's a place for him.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it sucks. I'm not one of those guys who what drives me, I think, crazy is because, after covering recruiting, like you said, 3 cycles or 4 cycles, whatever it's been, you've got fans, and this is every fan base. This is not just me taking a shot at OU fans, but every fan base has every single recruiting cycle where they'll love a kid. He's fantastic. He's this and that. He'd be so good for us. And then when it appears he's going somewhere else or when he commits somewhere else, oh, he sucked anyway. We didn't need him. He doesn't. It doesn't matter. I don't really take that approach. I think it sucks. I was hopeful that we could get Grant Briggs. It didn't work. It doesn't look like it's going to work out that way, or it's not going to work out that way. Yeah, it is what it is. I think you want to have a good example with these head coaches selling the same thing. Matt Rule bringing back Nebraska. Oklahoma was really never gone, but he's trying to bring it back to a winning title program. So yeah, it's the same thing. Nebraska, I mean, that I imagine would be one of the coolest places to take an OV as a player, because that place, no matter how bad the team is, they're going to have 100,000 plus people there losing their minds.
Yeah, and something that, I mean, you're seeing it too, Brandon, that's being talked about is when's the last time Oklahoma had a dominant offensive line? You bring up 2017 because they are the Joe Moore Award winners. But they weren't bad after that. I mean, last year was probably really the time where you're like, man, that offensive line had a lot of holes in it, and they're making a ton of mistakes. But, I mean, this year they're good. Like, are they the best offensive line out there in the country? No. They're not close to that. But they're an above-average offensive line. They make mistakes, but they're also really young. There was a lot of rotation. I think that's really the biggest thing that when you look at this offensive line over the last 2 years, there's not really been one solid group, and either because of injury or because they want to test out different groups, whatever reason that the coaches have. That's, I think, the biggest thing that you can truly point to and say, this is probably why that unit of 5 guys weren't on the same page and figuring things out as a unit, because it's like 9 different guys playing out there any given day, probably on in one single night you'll see 9 different offensive linemen. Like Rame is really the only one that you consistently see on the field.
Walter Rouse, maybe. I think he's played.
Yeah, I mean, even Walter Rouse has recently kind of been subbed out for Big Sexy. Guyton didn't get playing time this week. So you got to look at it in hope of the fact that these younger guys are still playing. If Rame does come back, that's good. I would assume he does. He's played well, but maybe not like top 3 draft pick well. Caden Green is going to be back and better and stronger. I think that's a huge highlight in your offensive line group. Jake Sexton, Jake Taylor, both of them. Jake Sexton has looked good in the time he's played. Jake Taylor has looked good in the times he's played. And it's really just who's the other tackle. Because Sexton plays one tackle. Sexton is Taylor plays guard. Sexton plays tackle. Caden, one of your guard positions, and then Rame as your center. So who's the other guy, right? And it could be someone from the portal, could be someone that's already on the roster that is coming back or that's coming in this recruiting class. Is the best offensive line recruiting class? No, but it's not bad either. Like this one is different from last year. Last year was a lot of guys that had potential to be good and do have that potential. These guys are bigger bodies that you look at and you're like, all right, if they can figure this offense out quickly enough, they probably have the physical makeup to impact the game quicker.
It's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. Obviously, it stinks to lose out. I will say I thought we would get Eddie Pierre-Louis, and it seems like that was a whiff as well.
That one, you still have a chance there with how much he changes his mind.
No, it's true, but I mean, it's just the whole wishy-washy thing just doesn't. I don't know, it just doesn't bode well. I mean, I think Oklahoma's going to take at least another offensive lineman in this class. They're going to see if they can't swoop in with a guy that probably doesn't hold an offer right now, if I were to guess, and maybe look at the portal and take another guy or two through the portal. I think they'll probably take 5 to 8 players in the portal, depending on who leaves too. I mean, I guess that's a part of the equation, but I don't think we're going to see as many takes in the portal as we did last offseason because of how big this recruiting class. What are we, 28 right now, maybe?
Yeah, they're 28.
Yeah. So, and you're right. Yeah, I mean, and they're talking about Jacob Sexton. Yeah, and you mentioned it, Hose. Yeah, I mean, he could fill that void right away for Guyton, and that's who we thought probably was going to kind of fill that role. The way he was playing a little bit in that Cheez-It Bowl against Florida State. Speaking of Florida State, dude, Jordan Travis.
Dude,
hate to see it.
General college football is going to get crazy here. Both because of that, I think Florida State's going to get screwed a little bit like Tennessee was last year. Because as soon as Hendon Hooker got hurt last year, no one even looked at them as a potential. Like, regardless of how they finished, no one even considered them even being a good SEC team. Jordan Travis having a broken leg, it sucks for him. I mean, he's going to the NFL now, so he's got time to recover. But man, Florida State took a big hit there.
Yeah, they did. I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about just general. I mean, I know that's in the title, but if a few games go a certain way, it's going to get really interesting. This is when the College Football Playoff Committee is going to look like. Or they're going to be wishing this was the 12-team format. Because if any year was the year to start, it was this year for the 12-team format. Because, I mean, Georgia's good, obviously. Alabama's good. Texas has played well. But when you look at Florida State, I mean, it would be hard to leave Florida State out. And then you've got Oregon, who I think arguably is – I think they're better than Washington. I don't think Washington's that good. I mean, Washington's fine.
They did beat Oregon.
I understand, but I think Oregon's is gonna take care of them in the
I'm one of the guys who I stand on that. Until they beat them, I think Washington's better. Unless Washington was a 4-loss team.
So let me ask you right now: They're going to play the Pac-12 championship game.
Give me the Huskies.
Really?
100%. They beat them.
I think the Ducks. The Ducks are going to run them. I think Oregon's way better of a football team than Washington is.
They lost to Washington.
It was also in Washington. I think the neutral field takes that away, or Oregon will get that advantage again.
I think Bo Nix and Oregon will beat Washington soundly.
You're a big Bo Nix guy. I'm not sold on Bo Nix. I know he's played well, but Oregon is a better team. I will agree with you there. I think Oregon is a better team than Washington. Washington
definitely has the better quarterback play.
For sure. But Washington's lows have been way lower than Oregon's lows. Like, Washington has been able to escape bad teams and remained undefeated, which is it. I mean, being an undefeated team is not easy.
I mean, yeah, you could say that the quarterback play has been better than Penix because Penix is really good. But Bo Nix I think he's being held back a little bit because people think about him at Auburn. He is ultra efficient. I mean, he's completing 78.1% of his passes right now.
Is that a Bodacious t-shirt I see on you?
Me?
No. Rum. Is that...
No, it's a Celtics. It's not Bodacious, not Bo Nix.
He has a billboard in Dallas. Do you guys know that?
Bo does?
No. Bo Nix.
Really?
At least during OU Texas weekend, there was a big ass billboard of just Bo Nix. And I was like, why? Like, why is this here? This doesn't make any sense. This guy has nothing to do with this area. He didn't come from Dallas. He doesn't play in Texas. Like, this dude has zero ties at all to this state, to this city. What are we doing?
I don't know. All I got to say is Bo Nix has scored 40 touchdowns this year with 2 picks, and he's completing 78.1% of his passes. So,
all right. I'd like to hear you guys because I think at the end of the day and every year since the inception of this 4-team playoff, there's always 1 or 2 teams that think that they were robbed and not given the opportunity to prove that they're one of the best 4 teams in the country. Who is it this year? Who is in the 4 and who's a team that gets snubbed? I think there's a very good chance Texas is 100%. That team that is going to be Texas screwed.
Yeah, no, I think they're gonna. Well, if Oklahoma gets in the Big 12 title game, I'm still picking the Sooners to beat them. But if we don't get the help that we need, so I'm pretty sure all we need this weekend now is a state loss to Brigham Young, and that puts us in. Anyway, and we need Texas to beat Tech. So if those things happen, we get back in.
No, we just need BYU to beat Oklahoma State, and if that happens, we're in.
Okay, well that's the scenario. That's all we need. Let's get it. I would love to get that. But if we don't get in, if Oklahoma State beats BYU and Texas, I think they're going to take care of business against Tech. I think Texas is going to absolutely boat race the shit out of Oklahoma State. I don't think that game is going to be very competitive. So then there'll be a 12-1 team. I think Washington does beat Oregon, and I think Texas gets hosed. But I mean, if Oregon beats Washington, like you guys are predicting, then I think it's interesting for Texas.
Well, it doesn't get interesting if Georgia beats Alabama in the SEC title. I mean, because Alabama would be a 2-loss, basically Oklahoma. I mean, you're not getting in. It's only possible if Alabama wins. If they win the conference championship, Alabama and Georgia will both get in. I think Florida State gets the boot out.
But if they're undefeated, they can't be, right? There's no way. Like, if they're undefeated, there's no way. That can't happen.
True. If they remain undefeated and win the conference.
All they say is, looking at how they play today,
they never mean that. They never. I feel like there's no way. And I understand, like, Florida State has lost Jordan Travis, and I hated that for them, for him. Everything of all that sucked. But there's no way that they put any team with a loss in over an undefeated Florida State team, right? That can't happen.
So
let me just go through let me look through the top 8 real quick, because the top 8 are essentially the teams that have an opportunity to be in the college football playoffs. Georgia at 1, Ohio State at 2, and Michigan at 3. Washington at 4, Florida State at 5, Oregon, and then 6, 7, and 8 are Oregon, Texas, Bama. If Georgia wins, they're in, and Bama doesn't have a shot, right? The winner of Ohio State, Michigan will go in. If Washington wins out, they'll be in. And if Florida wins out, or Florida State wins out, you assume they've got to be in. You have 4 undefeated conference champions. It wouldn't make sense to put Texas in or anyone else in. But like you said, Brum, it gets interesting if Bama wins. Do you not put Georgia in?
Okay, so what if this is wild. So Georgia wins, they beat Alabama, they're in. I agree, 100%. Washington, they win, they're in. So what if Texas wins the Big 12 at 12-1, Michigan or Ohio State, whoever wins this weekend, somehow loses to Iowa in the Big 10 title game. What was the top the top 4 again? Run that back, because I had it
Georgia,
in my head.
Ohio State, Michigan, Washington.
I had it better. Hold on, you guys go ahead. I'm gonna figure this out.
All I gotta say is if Alabama beats Georgia, they both get in.
Yep.
The winner of Ohio State, Michigan will get in, which I think will be the Buckeyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're telling me that if Oregon goes in and whoops up on old Washington, and Bo Nix is playing the way he is, you're going to put Florida State in over Oregon. There's no way.
No, they wouldn't.
So here's the thing. Washington's undefeated. Georgia's undefeated. Texas wins. Ohio State loses. I forget the other team again.
I mean, Michigan wins. Like, if there's 4 undefeated conference champions, I think it's a very easy and clear situation for the committee. It doesn't get funky unless Alabama wins, Oregon wins, and Florida State stays undefeated. Like, if those 3 things happen, who are they going to not put in? Because, like Brum said, if Alabama wins, you don't have a good case to not put Georgia in as well at the number 4 seed. They're back-to-back national champions. They only lost to Alabama in the SEC title game. And especially if it's a close game, you want to see that happen again. If Oregon wins, they're a Pac-12 champion whose only loss was Washington on the road. And they were able to avenge it. It'd be kind of like Oklahoma whenever their one loss was to Texas and we got in, the Kyler Murray year. You got it. I mean, just with consistency and precedence, you would assume Oregon would go in. I think Texas's only hope to get into the college football playoffs is they are the biggest BYU fans with us this weekend. Because if they can avenge their loss to Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game, that's their path to being the number 4 seed in the college football playoffs.
If Florida State, Georgia, and fucking this is crazy. This is the 3rd time in a row. I think the 3 teams: Florida State, Georgia, Washington. Florida State, Georgia, Washington. Those 3 teams are undefeated. They have to be in. I think they're an undefeated team. And then if Michigan or Ohio State, whoever ends up winning this game, loses in the Big 10 title game, and Texas wins the Big 10 title game, regardless of opponent. So say it's Oklahoma State, say it's Oklahoma, it doesn't matter. Do you think that they have to put Texas, a Big 12 champion over a
non-put Texas in?
Yeah, but Iowa winning anything is going to be much harder than BYU beating Oklahoma State this weekend.
BYU's going to win this weekend. I've been saying it for weeks. We got to win the Big 12.
Look, I hope so. But Iowa isn't beating anything.
Yeah. I mean, it could get really...
Iowa beats a lot of people.
They win a lot of football games.
They win a lot of football games. It's a fact.
They don't beat anyone good.
They're the same record as the Oklahoma Sooners.
They do, but they don't beat anyone good.
They don't know how to do a forward pass. Imagine if they learned that.
I mean, last year, I don't know if you guys remember, I was a big Spencer Rattler to Iowa guy because he's a good talent, but Brian Ferentz can't call that guy. Anyone could replace that guy. Putting a 12-year-old with an Xbox and with a headset could be better than that guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could get really interesting. But you know what? Go Cougs this weekend. We got to beat the Frogs on Friday. We're gonna see what happens.
It is kind of fun again. It worked out last Saturday where Oklahoma played the 11 o'clock window. We got to watch Oklahoma State. We got to watch Texas. And it's the same thing this week because we play Friday, so we'll get to lock in Saturday to the Cougars. I might just, wear your blue and white.
I bought a BYU sweater. I'm wearing that.
There you go. Throw your BYU sweater on. It's gonna be it's a perfect time for it.
Wish I could get a cougar tail. That'd be good.
Fuck. Yeah. If I had a cougar tail and a BYU sweater on, it's a basic lock.
And like they're saying in the comments here, BYU is still one win from bowl eligibility, so there is still some motivation on their end.
Yeah. I'm sure that they look back to that Iowa State game and just beat themselves up over it because that's one that when you look at it on paper and look at it before it happened, like they just beat themselves. You can't start the game with an interception and a fumble on a kickoff return. I think you're gonna win.
You guys want to take this question from Michael here before we sign off because I think it's a fun one to end the night on.
Oh man, we beat Texas in the championship, so we're a 2-loss Big 12 champion. The playoff bowls this year are which bowls? I can't remember.
Would it be the Sugar Bowl? Because that's what Bob Stoops was his last year. Was an 11-2 Big 12 champion that played Auburn in the Sugar Bowl, and they won obviously. But is that
fun game?
Would it be a similar situation?
So this year it's the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, so we wouldn't play in either one. So we'd probably go to the Cotton Bowl if I were to guess. That one would be
electric.
I guess the Cotton or the Orange, but I think it would be the Cotton. And we'd probably play an SEC team. So it would probably be, if Georgia beat Alabama, it'd probably be Alabama.
Oh, you Bama in the Cotton Bowl, that would be.
Wouldn't it?
That would be so fun.
That would actually be really fun to preview for next year. That would be really
amazing.
Cool.
We'd have to go
because it would be a preview for next year.
Does that fall in that time period that you're here, Hose?
Yeah, New Year's Six Bowl. It would be right before. It'd be in that window where there's nothing
have
to do.
To go for sure.
Yeah. So I think it would be the team that lost, assuming. But I guess if Alabama does beat Georgia, they both go to the playoffs. Then the third team would it be LSU?
Missouri or LSU?
No, Missouri. Yeah, it could be Missouri.
Either of those teams. I think we play them both next year. Really, if we play anyone in the SEC, it's going to be a preview to what there is to come.
Yeah. I think I would love to play Alabama. I'd love to play Alabama. Just because it's Alabama. And could you imagine if Oklahoma snuck into the Big 12 championship, ruined Texas this season, and then beat Alabama and finished 12-2 as the Cotton Bowl champions? Oklahoma will be riding high into 2024.
Now, if we don't get the help we need, it's the Alamo Bowl, right? And it's looking like Arizona. At one point, I think it would have been USC, but they've lost 100,000 games.
Mm-hmm.
But State,
Arizona.
I think at that point it can be anyone, right? It doesn't have to be a Pac-12 team.
No, it's a Pac-12 team.
Pac-12.
Yeah. So because assuming Oregon would beat Washington would probably go to the Orange Bowl or something. They probably would get a New Year's Six Bowl still. So yeah, it probably would be Arizona. Be my guess.
That'd be boring.
Yeah,
I'd like to
be a lot more fun if it was USC, but
if there was a way to play like a Penn State, that'd be fun. Who else is up there? I think Missouri would be a fun game.
I mean,
Kind of
the
in
orange
a way
the Orange
revitalizing
Bowl
it.
will be filled by an ACC team, so it could be Florida State or it could be Louisville. And the Orange Bowl would probably be filled by a group of five, if I were to guess. I guess
Yeah, I
I
think that's
guess
what's been projected.
I guess it could either we go to the Cotton Bowl or we could go play in the Fiesta Bowl.
Oh fuck, the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's
That would suck.
I
No.
One
yeah
time I'm not there.
yeah. I think it would be the Cotton Bowl though. I think it would make the most sense.
Dude, the Cotton Bowl versus Alabama. That'd
It'd
be
be
the
a
craziest thing of all time. That'd be so fun.
big game to go
Yeah,
to.
I was gonna say I pulled up Fox Sports right now. It's a 2 day old article, and I swear we didn't read it before, but their prediction is Oklahoma and Alabama in the Cotton Bowl, December 29th.
Yeah. So if that for that to happen, we need Texas to get to the college football playoffs more than likely.
Oh yeah, yeah. If they didn't make it, then they'd be playing in that game, and we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Good consolation if we don't get there.
the Peach Bowl is where they've got the group of five and Tulane going to play Florida State, and then they've got the Orange Bowl for Louisville playing Ohio State. This is assuming that Michigan would beat them, and then the Fiesta Bowl would be Washington and Missouri. So, man,
Cotton Bowl against Bama boys.
wouldn't that'd be pretty
It'd
awesome?
be so fun. I want
I
it.
mean, I guess is there any path for Oklahoma making the playoffs in any
No.
crazy
No,
scenario?
no. Not this. Everyone would have to find a way to lose and then have their starting quarterback go down.
Well, let's just do this thought. Yeah, I mean, what happens if Florida State loses, Georgia wins, Ohio State or Michigan, one of the two. It doesn't matter. One of them wins. Washington wins.
Mm-hmm.
So you got those three teams in. Oklahoma is a 2-loss conference champion. And then they're going against a 2-loss Alabama, a 2-loss Oregon. Trying to think who else I mean, those two are the ones that would come to my mind and then a 1-loss Ohio State or Michigan, non-conference champion.
Non-conference champion. Yeah, that's.
They wouldn't be a conference champion at that point.
Wait, no, they could be because even if
It would be a non-conference champion because the other one would have made it as a conference champion.
Yeah, so a
if
1-loss.
they lose one game, they'll be a champion, right? Because no, never mind. You're right.
No.
Yeah, and then Missouri's 2 losses.
It'd be
Alabama.
It'd be the Big Ten team.
But we are asking for Iowa to win the Big Ten title. Then
No, not necessarily. I mean, Ohio State or Michigan can win out, and then a 2-loss conference champion, I think, would get over a 1-loss.
I don't think so
No,
because it's a 2-loss team.
Yeah, but
The
they're
one
conference
non-conference champion being a 1-loss team who lost to a team as the game this weekend between Michigan and Ohio State would have to be an extreme blowout in one team's favor for the other one to not get an opportunity at the playoffs.
yeah.
It would help if Iowa won out.
Oh, it would definitely help.
But then,
It's
if Iowa's a 2-loss team who just won the Big Ten, and we're a 2-loss team who just won the Big 12,
Then Bama
Well,
gets
we're a
in.
better
are they
team.
going to value our win over Texas more than their win over Michigan or Ohio State?
I don't think
know.
there's a chance in this world where Oklahoma gets in, unfortunately. A lot of injuries would have to happen for the committee to be like, yeah, none of this would be fun. We just got to put Oklahoma in because they'll bring in the money.
Yeah, or unless like Washington loses this weekend and Oregon loses this weekend.
Let's play the mental gymnastics to see how long
That's all we need.
what we can put together.
Oregon and Washington both lose this weekend, and then one beats each other in the playoffs or in their conference champion. And I don't know. We'll see.
You know what? We'll see.
It's not going to happen.
Maybe I'm just the naysayer.
It's not going to happen. But anyway, I just want to play. I want to play Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. That sounds fun.
Yeah, I would like it to be in driving distance of Oklahoma, because if it's in Arizona, I'll be pissed.
The one time it wouldn't benefit you.
Yeah. Or what happens if Alabama loses to Auburn this weekend?
And then I
beat
think we could get
Georgia.
Alabama regardless, right?
Yeah, and what happens if they beat Georgia in the SEC championship and they're a 2-loss conference?
This guy's got Washington, Georgia, OU, Iowa in the playoff. That is what we need to see.
That's ballsy. Iowa would never make it in.
No, because they can't score the football.
Mm-mm.
All right. A lot of what ifs.
A lot of what ifs.
Talk in circles.
We'll see.
But
We'll see.
Let's
This
just win.
weekend's got to play out.
Let's just win the Big 12.
Yeah.
We need Texas Tech or BYU to help us out.
I thought if Texas Tech won, we're still not in because of this whole
Not guaranteed.
strength of schedule type deal.
If Texas Tech wins,
I think it makes more sense for us to pull for Texas Tech this weekend.
that tiebreaker isn't known. The Big 12 hasn't come up with those rules yet. If Texas Tech wins and Oklahoma State loses, or an Oklahoma State wins, and OU and Kansas State also win, I think at that point Oklahoma State is in. And
Pretty sure Oklahoma State and Texas both control their own destiny.
yeah, so if one of them if they win, they're in. But if Texas Tech somehow beats Texas, and Oklahoma and Kansas State win, think it's between Oklahoma and Kansas State.
Assuming Oklahoma State loses too.
No, assuming Oklahoma State has won. If they win, they're in.
Yeah.
Anyway, get excited for the Egg Bowl on Thursday. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Go Cougs.
Yeah, just ready to be what you did Saturday, and we'll be fine.
Yeah. That's all I've got. You guys have anything else?
It's a good live. Good job.
Yeah. All right. Well, made it this far. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're like 86 subscribers away from 6,100. Join the club. Help us get to 6,100. Do that now. Turn that notification bell on so you know when we go live and post videos. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything is linked in the description below. And also buy a t-shirt. Once we sell